to order. The time is 3:29. And do we need to do roll call first?
Yeah, we'll just, usually what I do is I just note for the record, the board members, President, Vice President Estrada, and Director Aguilar are here, so we do have a quorum.
Thank you. And so, do we need to open up public comment?
We do. Mm-hmm.
So do we have anybody wishing to make public comment, either here or on Zoom? Are we still streaming on Zoom?
Let me just check. No, Mr. President or Vice President, at this time, we do not have any members of the public on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to discussion items, and we have a number of items under state items and then items under B. So we'll get started with the state items.
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, Vice President Estrada, Director Aguilar. And this is the first meeting of the year, and I know it's March, but Happy New Year nonetheless. We'll jump right into some of our state items, and I'm actually going to tag team this with Cyrus Devers from BB&K, our state advocate. And so I'll hand it off to him to provide a little bit of an overview of things happening in Sacramento.
Hey, thank you. So where we are right now is we are marching into okay, so I'm kind of back to, I can hear everything I say in about 2 seconds. So if I pause funny, just bear with me. But so the last 2 weeks of April are the busiest committee times. A lot of things that were important got pushed off. So we have a break next week, but then the following 3 weeks are going to be jam-packed with the heaviest bills of the year. And whatever someone did, that just fixed it. It sounds better. Thank you. I don't know, Victoria, how in depth do you want me to cover like what we're happening up here in Sacramento before we get into the items?
No, that's fine. Let's jump right in. And so I'll kick it off with AB 818. This is something that we were following very closely in 2021. This had to do with affixing a do not flush on flushable wipes. And so what you'll have in your packet, I won't go too in depth in it, but it's the annual compliance report of the committee that is working on putting AB 818 into effect. So I just wanted to, keep you guys up to date and include that within your packet. So happy to take questions on it if we have anything.
No, but I do want to go back to Cyrus. And we've done this in the past, and I think for Director Aguilar, I know it was helpful for me just to very quickly go through the Sacramento schedule. Even for me, it's a refresher. I sometimes forget when bills need to move. It gives us a sense of timeline when it goes through certain committees. Yeah. By when when do we know what bills made it through, what bills didn't make it through, when do they need to be presented by, so that we kind of get a sense of how much time we have to
Certainly.
be on.
We were having some technical difficulties, but Cyrus, do you want to cover what Vice President Estrada asked? Thank you.
I'd love to. Okay, so we are marching up to probably one of the most important deadlines of the year, which is April 28th. That's a Friday. So by that date, any bill that's fiscal, and remember near 90% of all bills are deemed fiscal. It's a strange definition of what it means to cost money. So by April 28th, even if a bill is double or in rare cases triple referred, meaning it has to go through 2 or possibly 3 committees, it doesn't matter. You have to march through all of your policy committee deadlines by April 28th. You then just get a brief breather. By the way, if you are one of those bills that's non-fiscal, you get till May 5th. But then you get just maybe a few days to breathe, and you got to go right back into appropriations if you're a fiscal bill, which most are. And then you've got to clear the fiscal committee by, I believe it's May 19th. So you've got to be referred to the floor by then. And even then you have to keep marching because you got to clear the floor and get to the second house by June 2nd, which of course it starts all over again. So this, if you've delayed, if you've procrastinated, or because maybe you had to, the calendar gets really compressed at this point, and you've got to keep moving fast. So those are the 3 key dates that will get us through the legislative recess in July.
And as Cyrus mentioned, they're going on a brief recess this next coming week as well.
Yeah, next week is spring recess.
Thank you. That schedule's helpful.
Perfect.
With that, are we ready to jump into the bills?
Yes, did you guys have any questions on AB 818 on the compliance report? Okay.
No.
All right, yeah. Cyrus, go ahead with SB 23.
Okay, SB 23 is Senator Caballero. This can be loosely described as a permit streamlining bill. And what it does, it says firm deadlines that if you have a water project or a flood mitigation project and you need permits or approvals, they must happen at a predictable schedule. It lays out timelines in the bill. So if you, public agency, are looking for something, you have to ask for approval from the state. They've got maybe, depending on what it is, 180 days, or it varies by the project. But loosely speaking, is permit streamlining. So, sponsored by Aqua, this is set for hearing in Senate Natural Resources and Water on April 11th.
And so CVWD did join the Aqua Coalition in support of SB 23. This is actually an Aqua-sponsored bill with the senator. And so it's something that we're in favor of and would greatly help streamlining efforts.
Thank you. Just real quick, are there any identified projects already that as a reason why this bill was being thought about, or is just trying to just set it up for the future, for just in general?
The latter.
I think it's the future. Yeah. And then also, and Cyrus, correct me if I'm wrong, but the governor's water supply strategy plan that was issued last summer also talked about efforts in permit streamlining. And I believe that Aqua also saw that as an opportunity, to put those wheels in motion.
You are correct. There have also been previous permit streamlining bills, and permit streamlining has been pursued in a variety of other areas, and I've been involved with some of them. It's a tough goal to achieve, but this is probably the largest effort in the water arena to get permit streamlining in place.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
None, Director Aguilar? Okay.
Okay. Move on to 1572.
Yes.
This is by Laura Friedman, Assembly Bill AB 1572. It deals with prohibition on water non-functional turf with potable water. It's to be heard in Water Parks and Wildlife on the 18th of April, which is going to be a very big hearing day. There's two big hearing days, the 18th and the 25th.
You are muted. You can mute or unmute yourself by pressing star 6.
Hang on, Cyrus, you're muted.
The host would like you to unmute your microphone. You can press star 6 to unmute.
So it's not the principle of the bill, which is that issue. I mean, nobody is.
Hang on, Cyrus, 1 second,
water,
please.
median strips with extensively treated drinking water. That's not really the issue.
I don't think he can hear us.
It's the administration of it. So CMUA, for example, has put forward a mock with some amendments.
There you go.
You are unmuted.
They want conforming definitions.
Okay.
They want
Hang on, Cyrus.
definition of affordable. Yeah.
Okay, great. We were having, this is our first committee meeting back in person. We're going through some technical difficulties. Okay.
I think you need to restart. I think we missed
yes.
Probably all of it.
Probably all of it, absolutely. Yeah, so we're on AB 1572, Assemblymember Friedman. Okay.
Second time through, I'll probably be a lot better, so that's great. Okay. 1572, Laura Friedman. This is a prohibition on using potable water on non-functional turf. So it's in Water Parks and Wildlife on the 18th. That's going to be a big hearing day. 18th and the 25th will be the two biggest hearing days for our issues. The issue isn't the subject. Nobody is going to defend, watering median strips with drinking water. That's not it. It's the administration of it and the relationship between the customers. So CMUA, for example, is working closely with Aqua. They have put forward a series of amendments they're looking for. They want conforming definitions. They want, the most important thing is they want non-functional turf to have a consistent definition. And they're looking for the definition that already exists in the emergency regulations of the governor. Because, of course, this is already the subject of an emergency order. They want an exemption to water trees, where even if you have to use drinking water to keep a tree alive, if that's all you got, they want that option. They want a definition of multifamily housing because that's implicated in the bill, and they want a consistent one. But really, and then of course, it has to do with auditing the program. That's really the big sticking point. The current bill says water districts shall provide information on compliance. They want to switch that to the board may coordinate with water agencies to ensure compliance. That's probably the biggest, most substantive issue they're looking for. So, but these amendments seem doable. I mean, my gut tells me these are going to be worked out. So right now, the majority of the industry is opposed unless amended.
So what we are doing as CVWD for 1572 is we're just kind of watching this. We're not necessarily looking to engage more, and then we kind of want to see how the amendments flesh out, and how receptive the author is. But this is just one of the bills that we're going to be watching.
Is there money that comes with enforcement in the bill?
No, that's kind of why they're ratcheting down what is demanded of a water agency.
Okay.
Under the emergency regulation, we are able to fine $500 a day, so that could fund some turf conversions or enforcement activities.
Okay, good enough.
Would this only take effect under an emergency declaration, or is this just kind of, this would be the status quo?
This would be the status quo, but for potable, like domestic water only.
Yeah, so to the point that you made about under the emergency regulation, we are imposing fees. We wouldn't be imposing those fees without an emergency regulation, would we?
No, we wouldn't.
Okay.
Not without going to the board and getting that authorization, which we've never done.
Okay, so right now we don't have a funding mechanism other than through an emergency order
Right,
to
allowing us to.
impose the fee.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So I think that's a fair point. That's a good point. And so the other question I had was, I saw some language in there that said, made reference to the urban water management plan, and agencies need to meet 20% reduction by the year 20 something. It just feels to me like if, as an agency, you are meeting your target, I don't know why the state would want to force you to implement something like this if you're meeting your conservation target as per the urban water management plan. So does Cyrus say that there would be, does this give the state any sort of enforcement authority over agencies that aren't somehow implementing this? Can they face fines, or what's the result of this goes into effect and then
So
we don't have a plan?
we can certainly come back to the committee with more information. I think we need to dive a little deeper, but what I see in the bill language regarding the 20% that you're mentioning, it's about existing law, and that there was already a requirement that the state achieve a 20% reduction in urban per capita water use by December 2020. So I don't know if that has anything to do with moving forward. It seems to already have been a target that we should have all met.
Okay.
But we can circle back and dive a little deeper.
And in general, have we made an assessment on about how much area within our district would be considered non-functional turf? And I ask because I think it was also something that was part of maybe the water shortage contingency plan, maybe. And so I don't know if we already have a sense of what the magnitude of these types of areas are for us within the district. Are they almost insignificant? Is it a large area? Do you have a sense
Are
of
you
that?
referring to a non-functional turf within the domestic system or all non-functional turf?
Within domestic, this is for domestic, right?
This is for
Yeah.
So
domestic.
just for domestic.
So we don't have a sense of how much there is. And part of it is that, based on aerial, if you base it on aerial imagery, a lot of what appears to be non-functional turf is actually irrigated with recycled water or maybe private well or canal water. So, we don't necessarily have a good assessment of, how much area. We did enter into that MOU with the Colorado Basin states, the municipal water providers, saying we would reduce it by 30%. So we're actually, okay watching this bill and see how it plays out, and kind of moving forward accordingly. But I do think it'll help us achieve conservation down the road. It'll help us, on multiple fronts, achieve conservation down the road. And we are enforcing this right now. We've been pretty busy in the water management department over the last year, but we are issuing fines and people are removing non-functional turf at businesses. It gets a little bit more complicated with HOAs because under the emergency regulations, it's the homeowners association, the governing board in consultation with their members that determines what is functional versus non-functional. So, it's a little bit more clear cut for commercial, and for HOAs, it's not as clear cut, if that helps.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions, Director?
No? Okay. Okay. So SB 414 with Alan, this is another one that we are just going to be watching. Just want to say that from the outset, so you kind of know what kind of direction we're looking for. We're definitely looking to hear your thoughts. But so what this Allen bill does, it would prohibit artificial turf from being funded through conservation programs due to potential exposures from PFAS and other contaminants. So it would limit what you could use your conservation monies for from whether it's a special district, city, county, etc. So it would remove artificial turf in a nutshell. Happy to dive deeper or if Cyrus has anything further, but we're open to any questions if you have them.
Would this would be for even existing funding that we have already received for grants or just for new grant rounds?
So that's already prohibited in some of the grant language, in some of the grants that we've received.
The newer grants, it's already prohibited.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then this would only hit programs that are funded by state funding?
No,
No.
this would be our program.
This would be any city, county, special district funding.
So they're saying
No more artificial
no,
turf.
you can't have an incentive program regardless of the funding source
For artificial
for
turf.
artificial turf.
They
But
really encourage.
isn't there an alternative? That
Yes.
does not have contaminants?
Yeah, the desert-friendly landscaping. They would rather you just go to straight drought-tolerant plants and native landscape versus the artificial turf.
I think the question was if there's an alternative
To the non-contaminant artificial turf?
I think the manufacturers would have to develop that because it's very specific about what chemicals they're seeking to prohibit. So I think if this were to go into effect, there would be an alternate product, but
And that might be developed by the artificial turf industry, but
yeah. I mean, if it's such a big
You could ask
concern,
that
why,
question.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Cyrus.
Yeah, I did ask that question on an aqua call with everybody on it. See if anybody else had looked into it. Nobody else had, and the materials prohibited include plastic generally. So I think that would include any subset of plastic. So I would suspect it covers all known products at this time.
my general comment, and it's just to make a comment, is if the state is so concerned about this, why don't they just ban it at the state level?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
And
I just,
that might be their intent down the line, who knows, right? They might just want to be starting first because of the drought and, or I guess the past drought and the increased participation, like across the state in conservation programs, maybe that they saw greater increase there and, one step at a time, but I probably foresee more.
And Aqua, you said Aqua, we're in line with Aqua here.
We are watching this. Cyrus, do you recall Aqua's position on this? I thought they were a support.
They just took it up, but I failed to note their position because I knew we weren't.
We can circle back.
I'm sorry, I don't know Aqua's
I don't
position.
necessarily think they're opposed.
You don't see this as a big issue for us?
Well, the only issue I see is that if the alternative is more expensive,
Correct.
then
because
that
of
hurts the
contamination.
little guy, right?
Well,
Are you saying,
I think the alternative may not be as expensive. So going to what we've seen is that, some of the artificial turf contracts have been, $10, $11, $12 per square foot and more, where the desert-friendly landscaping can be less. So I think the alternative is there in terms of desert landscaping.
Sure. Well, I agree. I think we should watch this more closely.
yeah, and I think, I was kind of taking your question, what's the alternative? If there is truly, PFAS in the artificial turf, is the alternative potential contamination, treating that contaminate, et cetera, down the line. So that's why, we'll continue to monitor this one very closely and let you guys know if there's any updates.
Yeah, I do see your point. Like if there's actually PFAS in that, eventually we're going to have to deal with it.
We'll be on the hook for it at some point as well.
Yeah, okay.
And
Thank
it'd
you.
be good to see the science behind the
Yeah,
bill.
we'd like to see data. Anna?
Thanks, Victoria. Director Estrada, I think also, and Director Aguilar, really important on this is some of the actions being taken on the federal level and where responsibilities will fall in terms of legal liabilities that are worth consideration by you all right now. Erring on the side of making sure we're being as cautious as we can on PFAS is incredibly important. And that's just putting it simply. We could have a whole other conversation on that, but as much as you are taking stances and making sure you're not furthering that is really, really important.
Thanks.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, and then I did just want to circle back really quickly to, I just closed my agenda, AB 1572. There is a mechanism in the bill, this is the one about non-functional turf, there's a mechanism in the bill that would allow authority to impose fines. I know we had a fine question, just wanted to circle back that we would be allowed to under domestic water. Okay. All right, next, AB 334. So this is Assemblymember Blanca Rubio bill, and I'll just give very high level and then toss to Cyrus. But so this is something, our previous platform, if you recall, regarding follow-on contracts that our engineering department has been working on, and we've engaged previously on this. So there's this new bill that a follow-on contract essentially is when we go out to bid, there's the pre-stages, the design and the preliminary work, and whoever does that is not allowed to bid for the actual project. And so as a result, what we've been seeing and hearing from engineering is that we're not getting as many bids, and when people do want to bid, they rather bid the more lucrative part of the project versus the preliminary part of the project. And so 334 would kind of remove those restrictions and allow a little bit more flexibility. So we have taken a support position on this bill as per the legislative platform, and we're engaging on it. And we've also have been asking for Aqua, CSDA, CMUA to also consider this at their legislative committees as well. I did more than just a brief dive, but Cyrus, did you have anything further?
Sadly, I don't. I'm getting concerned about this because I reached out to the lobbyists for information, haven't heard back, and I reached out to staff earlier this morning and asked for an update, haven't heard back. We're getting down to the wire here. This bill only has, a couple more weeks to be set and heard in committee, and so far it does not have a hearing date. So I'm hoping there's still this is still a live bill, but at this time it has no hearing date.
So So we would be very in support of this one.
Okay, so
Hopefully
this
it's
is-
still active and moving.
Yeah, and I know that this is something that we've proposed for many years. I don't know if at one point we actually try to sponsor the bill.
We did through Aqua in, I think, 2018.
Okay, and so is this like our second, third stab at it, or?
No, this was actually not put forward through us. This was, Cyrus, do you know who put this one forward?
From before or
No,
this year?
currently. It's the folks that we previously worked with on this bill. I'll have to circle back
Yeah,
and get
yeah.
their name, but they are the ones that put it forward. So and then once they had the author, Assemblymember Rubio, they reached out to us to see if this was still a priority issue, if we still wanted to engage, et cetera.
Was Rubio the same member that carried it last time?
In 2018, we brought it to Aqua's state legislative committee to see if Aqua wanted to sponsor it with us, and it did not move forward. So it actually never had an author.
This is the first time that it made it this far?
If I recall, yes.
So did we have a sense last time what the issue might have been?
I believe it's the engineering union. Is that right, Cyrus?
Yeah. Operating engineers came out opposed. They're big.
Okay, thank you.
So I just have a quick question about the process. So who prioritizes these hearings and establishes which bills go forward? Is that the speaker? How does that work?
It's a joint process between the committee and the author. So initially, the committee makes a decision as to when they would like to hear the bill. That may or may not work for the author. So the author can do a poll and go at a later date, but you can pretty much only do that once.
Okay.
So the first committee is, what committee is it?
Elections.
Election committee. So all bills must go through the election committee.
By the 28th.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, all bills assigned to the election committee. Oh, okay. Let me back up. The rules committee in each house assigns bills based on subject matter to a committee. Then that committee decides when they would like to hear bills. Then the author can decide if that date works, and if not, you can pull it and try for a later date.
Okay, thank you for making that clarification. Yes, there are multiple committees. As you mentioned, there was one, you just called it the Water Parks and Wildlife Committee, and there's toxins committees, and depending on the subject of the bill goes to that particular committee. And then from there, it moves on to other committees. Thank you.
If it sounds odd that it would go to elections, it's that it deals with conflicts of interest. So that's the key issue with this, even though we're talking about contracts. So that's why it's going to elections.
And what you said was that, to your knowledge, this has not been scheduled for a hearing in the committee?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I will let Cyrus tackle item number 7, AB 460, AB 1337, and SB 389.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. So these are the set of bills that are being referred to as the Modernizing Water Rights bills by the proponents. The big one, so I'd say in order of weight and precedence, AB 460 is probably the number one because it is the Water Parks and Wildlife Committee chair. It is the chair of the Water Parks and Wildlife Committee who has authored it, Rebecca Bauer-Cahan. The second one, SB 389, is Allen in the Senate. In terms of weight and likelihood of moving, I'd put that number 2. AB 1337 by Assemblymember Buffy Wicks. Assemblymember Wicks does not have a long track record of getting like tough bills through in the area of water policy. It's the most extreme of the 3 bills. Some speculation is that 1337 kind of makes 460 look more reasonable, but these are probably the most debated bills, of the year, certainly. And by that, I mean almost in any topic, beyond water even, but certainly within water. These are the big 3 that everyone is focused on. The first one, 460, it's set in Water Parks and Wildlife. This is the chair's committee, and on the 18th. And I have just recently learned, and this could affect my role in here, it's been double referred. And the second committee is Assembly Judiciary, which would have to follow the next week. And I was a former Judiciary Committee consultant, so I might play a role, and I might be asked to play a role. We'll see. Or we may bring in an attorney to deal with that. But Judiciary typically is all staffed by attorneys. And so they're dealing with the legal issues of due process around these bills. And due process are some of the biggest issues within these. But here I need some coaching as to how far you want to go. We could literally talk for an hour,
Sure.
On this subject.
Yeah, so we can absolutely dive deeper into the subject matter on these. I just want to let Vice President Estrada and Director Aguilar, we have joined Aqua's Oppose Coalition on these 3 bills. We are also working very closely with Zoe Rodriguez Del Rey, Environmental Service. We're working very closely with Zoe. So she's very heavily involved as our subject matter expert to see how these bills would be affecting us. But we wanted to just flag these for your attention, just to let you know, as Cyrus was saying, like, this is the hot topic of the year, is water rights modernization. And so there is a 4th bill, but that one is still kind of being worked on, and we don't quite know the impacts of that one just yet. That's why also Aqua's coalition is just these 3. But we have taken a straight oppose. We have signed on to Aqua's letter, and we will most likely be sending our own oppose letter as well to each of these authors.
Thank you. I stuff like this, I feel more comfortable knowing that you're taking an opposed position than when you take a support position. These are obviously very important and have big impacts. Does this bill only apply to water that's considered state water, or would this give the state authority over, let's say, Colorado River water?
This is just state water. Correct, Cyrus?
Well, water diverted from the Colorado River for the California is state water, and more importantly, this is really focused on water rights that are before 1914, which does include Colorado River rights, if I'm not mistaken. So the real thrust of this is getting at these senior water rights holders, mostly in the Delta. It's really not aimed at Colorado River, but it's the Northern California. These are the early water rights acquired by agricultural interests, mining interests, things like this. And currently, those are beyond the purview of the State Water Resources Control Board, because that's why they're referred to as pre-1914 rights. This is a move on those rights. It would give the board sweeping powers, to regulate these rights.
I don't know if I heard, I know you mentioned Zoe, but did you also mention Robert Chang as someone that's involved in this?
Yes, I did not mention it, but Assistant General Manager Chang is involved on 460. Both him and actually General Manager Barrett flagged 460. Like, everyone is flagging it at the same time. Like, it's a pretty big deal.
All right.
Have these bills gone through hearings?
Not yet.
No?
That's what I believe Cyrus said. AB 460 is up for Water Parks and Wildlife on April 18th.
Oh, right, okay.
And he said that 460 seems to be the one that has the most steam behind it. The other ones probably, you think, aren't going to make it to any sort of hearing?
Don't count 389 Allen out. Senator Allen's a good author, and he chairs the Environmental Quality Committee in the Senate. It's not the relevant committee, but he's a powerful member. So no, he has the ability to move a bill. Assemblymember Buffy Wicks, not so much. But I don't want to make any predictions, but
okay.
Yeah, and
I would
then
worry about the other two more.
yeah, and then just to reiterate, Assemblymember Bauer Kahan is the current chair of Assembly Parks and Wildlife, so her bill definitely has traction.
So I'm sorry, did you say we are going to send a letter?
We are going to be sending our own letter in addition to Aqua's coalition letter.
Thank you.
Okay, AB 557, I think this one we'll breeze through very quickly. This is a CSDA, California Special District Association sponsored bill. We have taken a position of support on this bill. It's regarding teleconferencing meetings, and the letter should also be attached within the packet. We can dive deeper in on this issue or move on to the next.
I don't have any questions.
I don't either.
Okay, perfect. And with that, I'll hand it over to Cyrus for SB 583 for State Senator Padilla regarding the Salton Sea Conservancy.
Very good. I don't have a whole lot to say about this because it was recently amended. It began life as a spot bill, and so it has been assigned to committee. It's going to Natural Resources and Water, but we do not have a hearing date yet. So the work has just started on this bill. I've not like met with anyone in favor of it who's working on it yet. So this is essentially a new bill.
And I know Director Aguilar and Vice President Estrada, both of you have mentioned this bill. I know both of you also sit on the Salton Sea Authority. And so, for this particular bill, we're welcome to your thoughts and opinions as we're just currently watching this. As Cyrus said, it was recently amended. So we're still diving through what those amendments might mean, but happy to hear your thoughts that you might have on this.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on it. I think my sense and what I would say is that we need to be prepared to oppose this bill. A sense that we need to do that might be soon. But now I kind of changed my mind hearing the dates that Cyrus mentioned. I think was it April 18th or
by April 28th, they need to have
April
a
28th. So we have about a month. The concern that I have is that it seems to me that this was a surprise to the Salton Sea Authority that this bill was introduced. The introduction of this bill, or the idea behind it, was not something that was vetted through the authority or any of its member agencies, is my understanding. I think there's a general sense in the authority that it's being rushed, that the bill proponents are not doing enough to get a sense of the authority's concerns or thoughts. I believe that there was some commitments at one point that the author would set some types of workshops within the Salton Sea area to do exactly that, and I don't think those have happened. I just got wind that some folks from the senator's office are coming down next week, but I haven't received any sort of invitation, so I'm unsure who they're meeting with. We also, I think one of the other issues is that I don't know how this ties into previous legislation that I think requires or directs the Natural Resources Agency to work with the Salton Sea Authority. I forget the bill, that's AB 571. I don't recall the number, but that the former Assemblymember Perez's bill. I think in general, for me, it just creates a lot of confusion. Right now, for example, we have the Army Corps of Engineers here in the Valley. They've spent 3 days. Today's their last day. And they're working on the feasibility study. I know that the Salton Sea Authority was having some preliminary conversations with maybe Assemblymember Garcia about what a conservancy might look like, but it was really more focused on creating some sort of conservancy for purposes of O&M of the projects that are either implemented right now or are going to be implemented, perhaps through some help from the federal folks, and as we continue to do projects on the 10-year plan. And so kind of throwing this in the mix seems to, it's just not timely. It's gonna create confusion. I think that at minimum, what I'm hearing is that we ask that it's a 2-year bill. If the bill is proposed as it is presented right now, I think the bill is going to be opposed, because that might be the only way to stop it. And so that's my sense of it. I would certainly also be in favor of opposing the bill as it sits right now. Maybe there are going to be more amendments. Maybe that's why folks are meeting next week. But again, I don't know who they're meeting with. And if it's not the Salton Sea Authority, who's kind of been at the forefront of implementing these projects, of thinking about long-term strategies and trying to connect dots, I think to leave the authority out of this process is just a little bit irresponsible. And so just for that reason alone, of not allowing the authority the proper time to be part of this process is just concern. That's enough concern for me, and it seems rushed. So I think that what I was hoping for, Director Aguilar, was that we would get some sense from the next meeting at the Salton Sea Authority, because I think we're going to have a conversation there, but it might be too late.
Yeah, so I would agree. And first of all, I agree with everything, Vice President, you've said about this bill. If you, there was some discussion, actually more sentiment expressed at the Salton Sea Authority Board meeting last week about this proposed bill, and it was prior to the amended language being submitted. But even after the amended language was inserted, that even raised more concern about conflicts in the enabling authority that was being proposed and how that conflicted with the mission of the Salton Sea Authority. And so there was a full report asked to be presented at the next board meeting next month. But I can say pretty confidently that based on the sentiment that was expressed by several of the board members who were at the meeting, that their concerns reflect those that you just indicated. And it seems to me, particularly if you look at some of the press that's been issued on this, that one can only conclude that there is potential for tons of problems and conflicts and who is on first. And I don't see anybody really benefiting, least of all the communities who need the support to get something done out there. So I would be in strong recommendation of taking a position to oppose if that is something that we can do.
Yeah, I think we should oppose it. My recommendation would also be to keep close contact with the other legislative folks and some of our member agencies, just so that you get a sense that we're all thinking the same thing.
Certainly.
And so I've asked a question of our executive director at the Salton Sea Authority. I said, hey, have you been having conversations about this bill with some of the other member agencies? And his kind of general comment back to me is, I haven't talked to a single member who seems to be in support of this bill. And so If the bill is not a 2-year bill at minimum, we need to oppose the bill.
Okay. So a couple of things, just for your knowledge. So we have been in contact with Antonio Ortega from Imperial Irrigation District. He's the government affairs manager there, and to get their feedback on the bill as well. I believe they have a legislative committee meeting next week. Well, they'll be considering the bill as well. And for your knowledge, we have been trying to get a meeting with Senator Padilla since January. He is a new senator for our area, recently elected. And for the redistricting, as you know, he goes as far, I guess, west of the Coachella Valley as Coachella and Indio, and then all the way down Imperial and San Diego County. So we have been trying to just introduce ourselves as an agency as well and kind of open up those lines of communication. We'll definitely keep our ears to the ground with IID and the other member agencies related to the Salton Sea Authority. I think my recommendation would be let's continue to just wait and see if something gets scheduled. I think if something gets scheduled, as you have mentioned, in its current form, then I've heard your intent. Let's take a straight oppose. And I feel like, as you said, if as both of you have said, if it changes into a 2-year bill, we can continue to watch, if I'm hearing your direction correctly.
I think I won't speak for Director Aguilar, but for clarification on what I said is, for me, unless it's a 2-year bill, we need to oppose it, but that would also depend on whether that falls in line with the other member agencies of the Salton Sea Authority. And what I mean by that is, it may be that even if it was a 2-year bill, it's not enough. And so if the feeling is among the majority of the member agencies that even a 2-year bill is something that we need to oppose, then at that point my recommendation would be that we kind of stay on a similar path with the rest of the member agencies.
Certainly, and the other option is, depending on where the Salton Sea Authority lands, aligning with that position as well. Right.
Yeah, and the only other comment I would add is that there were the members who were there representing the Imperial Irrigation District were most vocal about their concerns about this proposed legislation. So I'd be very surprised if the legislative committee's conclusion is any different than what we heard at the board meeting. But I've been surprised before, so yeah.
So then current staff direction is let's hold off, let's see what Salton Sea Authority does, and then, or would you both like to take a position today?
I think we're taking a position that we oppose unless amended at a minimum 2 years.
Okay.
And then that would change if somehow you hear that there's even more opposition than that.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
If I could jump in on that.
Yes, please, Cyrus.
So you don't, it becomes a 2-year bill if it's delayed. So that's not an amendment. So you've expressed that's just a straight oppose, which is fine. So in other words, if you're successful at opposing it, it's going to become a 2-year bill. Technically, no bill dies the first year. So any bill that's held becomes a 2-year bill, and it can be reconsidered next January. What I would like to do, so if your authorization is hearing these very serious concerns you voice, may I run into staff and say, are you aware there's all these concerns coming from the district and the Salton Sea Authority has not been consulted? Were you aware of this? And let me see what kind of a reaction I get from staff. Who knows? I might get really? No one told me. I don't know. But I won't know unless I ask. So with your permission, I'd like to do that.
Well, I don't know why we couldn't do both. I'd say go ahead and do that. If they've been as unresponsive to you as they have been to us in trying to get meetings put together, I think having our letter on record, it would perhaps give you some momentum to have that conversation. So I wouldn't hold up on the letter.
Okay. Would you still like that letter to be an oppose unless amend, or would you like to just do straight oppose because unless there are more specific amendments versus the 2-year, because that can't be an amendment?
Do we have to specify the amendments if we say unless amend?
Cyrus?
That is customary, yes.
Yes.
Which is why really what you're talking about is an oppose. You're saying you're opposed to doing this now. If you're successful, it becomes a 2-year bill. So, and yes, if you do oppose unless amended, the next question is, okay, what are your amendments?
So when a member has intentions of having a 2-year bill, they just don't introduce it. So that's what you're saying?
Or they hold it, yeah. They can choose to not set it for hearing. They can pull it. As I said, they can pull it from a hearing date. And if they do that and don't get it heard before the 28th, it's automatically a 2-year bill and cannot be considered until next January.
So the best approach might be to just oppose it, a straight out oppose. I mean, that might be, as you've suggested.
I think our direction is still that we oppose it. What I would, and I agree with Director Aguilar that IID does seem to be the most vocal. And so I'd also be surprised if they don't give the same direction at their legislative meeting next week. What I'd like to do is prepare that letter and work to coordinate that letter with IID if you hear that IID is doing the same, so that our letters perhaps go out at the same time. And if you hear differently, that somehow for whatever reason, weird reason, and I'd be surprised too, they are not willing to send an opposed letter, that maybe you let us know that before we send the letter.
Absolutely. And I think while we are waiting to hear from IID's position and having that time to coordinate the letters, I think Cyrus's point of still going out and trying to speak with staff or the key staffer that's working on this bill is still something that he can do if that's the direction. Because I think that's our key message would be, hey, no one's talked to Salton Sea Authority. Coachella Valley sits on the Salton Sea, and we'd like to speak with you. You know, we're leaning towards a straight oppose. This is not a good bill, and kind of have him do that legwork while on our internal side, you know, we're coordinating with IID, we're getting our ducks in a row for a letter, and then we can send that letter simultaneously as IID, but also depending how the conversation goes, because maybe, you know, I don't know if the staff is new, but the senator is new. So maybe there's been some miscommunications. I mean, that's wishful thinking, right? But I don't know if you guys still want us to have those conversations with the staff or just work with IID and get an opposed letter written.
I'm okay with both, unless the director feels differently, but I think the only way we would probably not send that letter is if for some reason we happen to hear back from the senator's office that they're willing to have a meeting with the Salton Sea Authority, with Coachella Valley Water District to address concerns.
Okay.
And then at that point maybe, but the letter's on hand, right? Just ready to be sent.
We will definitely have a letter drafted and make sure that both of you also get eyes on it and that it's coordinated.
Yeah, I think let's proceed in that fashion. I mean, it certainly isn't new news to the legislators that there's been lots of talk about concerns that we've expressed in IID and the authority as well. So I think we may be only able to send our message if we take a hard stand.
Absolutely. We'll get that coordinated and circle back with a draft letter.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda here is SB 366 by Senator Caballero, the California Water Plan Long-Term Supply Targets. I'm going to let Cyrus take this one. He's been working very, very closely with CMUA, California Municipal Utilities Association, who is the bill's sponsor. Thank you.
So this bill is actually the culmination of an almost year-long process. This is the Solve the Water Crisis initiative, which actually began outside the legislature. And I have to say, I've been incredibly impressed with the number of general managers who have participated in this effort. I sat in the meeting in Sacramento, early on, and saw more general managers in one room than I've seen since I was a legislative staffer, and we were working on, some pretty good water issues there. So this has a lot behind it. CMUA agreed to sponsor it, and CMUA reached out to Senator Caballero to be the author of this. So she is carrying two heavy-duty water bills this year, this and, of course, the Aqua bill, SB 23 that we started with. This, I think more likely than not, this will actually be a 2-year bill, not because of the lack of a desire to move it, simply because it's taking on so much. It's going to be extraordinarily difficult to cover everything we hope this bill to cover. So I've been working on these calls since early January. Actually started in December. We've been drafting out what do we want it to reach. Probably the text that's in it right now, which was put in order to get referred to committee. This is, I don't know, kind of the back of the napkin guess, but this is maybe a third of the issues or the substance that we hope to eventually cover in the bill. Right now, it sets numerical targets for where we want the water supply to be in 2040 and 2050. And it goes on to put a burden on the administration to develop a long-term financing plan. Well, we don't really intend to just punt to the administration. The group that's working on this actually intends to flesh out a long-term financing plan and put it in the bill at some point. But there's also many other issues we've discussed that we want to reach that there just wasn't time to get to. And, my personal one that I've kind of raised my hand for is the state revolving fund reformation to redo that program and make it more effective. Others have taken on other issues that are related to water supply. Agriculture is probably, going to be the biggest player in this. And, we have kind of yet to really even try to tackle, the agricultural community's contribution to this. So this is a extremely ambitious bill. My guess is it gets moved along to a certain point where it gets parked, and then we continue to work on it and really then try to work a lot on it during the fall. What's happened now is that the lobbyists and the attorneys who work on this, we put in a ton of work on it in January and the first part of February, but then we essentially had to stop because the tidal wave of legislation came through, and we've all got these jobs that we have to attend to, besides this one bill. And so we haven't been able to meet and discuss matters on this bill for a couple of weeks. So my guess is that's going to be kind of the order of things. We'll have periods where we put in a lot of work on it, put that work into the bill, move it. But I think my guess is we're still working on this bill next year because it's just, like I said, the scope that it purports to cover is pretty vast, and it's a pretty ambitious bill. Right now, it doesn't have a hearing date because we fairly recently amended it. It's likely going to be in natural resources and water, in the Senate. So it's going to be in one of those last 3 weeks of April, and I'm not going to try to guess that's when it goes. So we'll see what the committee wants to do. But with that, I'll pause and see if there are questions I can answer or anything else I should hear.
So what I was trying to get a sense of in general, and it does sound like you're saying there's a lot of work that still needs to get done. You're thinking the way the bill stands is like 1/3 of what it's going to end up being. And so, and I didn't get to read the Aqua's summary on it, but in general, do you think that this bill makes it easier or puts the state on the hook or obligates the state to create more water projects, to kind of keep them on task on projects like Sites Reservoir, or is it a combination of that or funding, desal plants or focusing on conservation measures, or is it like all of that? Are they saying we need to create more supply? Is this bill saying we need to create more supply, or what is it saying?
Absolutely. In fact, that's the first thing we tackled. So there's I'm going to do this from memory, so don't repeat these words in public without verifying it, but it sets a 2040 and a 2050 goal, 2050 target, I should say, not a goal. This is to what we need to expand the water supply to, or how much we need to expand the water supply. 10 million acre feet by 2040, 15 by 2050. To put that in context, we currently, in terms of surface storage, I think 35 million acre feet total in all of California, 3,000 reservoirs. I think it's 35 million acre feet. Boy, do not quote these numbers outside in public, but I think it's 35. And so this is shooting for a target of 10 and then 15 million additional acre feet to add to that. You can't add that much in surface storage. So yes, it would create, sites is not mentioned, no specific project is called out, but yes, it would create huge pressure on the state to finish sites and anything else we think we can do in surface storage. But remember, sites is only 1.5 million acre feet. So this is really looking towards a long-term vision of the work that we have to do to store more water underground, specifically the Central Valley. And so really it's legal mechanisms and funding that we have to work out. I mean, the aquifers are there. The technology is there. Technically, we could, in terms of logistics and pipes, this could be done fairly quickly. It's the laws surrounding it that are complex. So and how to fund the changes that would have to happen in order to have water stored underground with, agriculture right above it with rights. It's those things that have to be worked out long term, because the amount that we can store above ground, even if the top 5 projects that we've discussed and been covered in bonds, that would still just be scratching the surface of the amount that we need to expand the water supply. So no, the future is in underground water storage, and this is really looking towards that long-term future.
Thank you. Well, it sounds on the face of it that it's going to be a big bill. It's going to be, a lot of people are going to, it sounds like it's a big impact to, not in a negative way, but hopefully in a positive way to what kind of plays out here for the next years in California as it relates to water supply and
funding is going to be critical.
And funding. So, yeah, I'm really interested in learning a lot about this bill. And so, you've been working close with CMUA. Is there do they have like set up a working group or
They do have a working group. So we are currently not CMUA members, but actually we will be bringing membership to the board in the next month or so. But Cyrus works closely with CMUA through some of his other clients, and he's also been kind of what he calls the strike team for this particular bill. So he provides a lot of the lobbying assistance for CMUA, as well as, I'm sure, some legal expertise. But I don't know if we need to be CMUA members in order to be a part of their working group. I know that Aqua last Friday at their state legislative committee meeting, they did take a position of support on this bill. I believe Aqua's engaged quite heavily with CMUA on this. The entire water industry is in support of this bill, right? It's gigantic. But luckily, we have Cyrus in the room there for us, but as I said, we'll be bringing that membership in the next month or so, and then we can more fully engage with CMUA as well.
Remind me, what is CMUA again?
Yeah, California Municipal Utilities Association. So they do water and power.
Okay.
IID
If
is a
you're not
member.
as familiar with them,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just going to list some
I was gonna
members.
say, if you're not as familiar with them, it's because historically they have been identified more with power generation and power company utilities. But starting about 2015, they brought on Danielle Blassett, which she had a specialty in water. She actually worked in Aqua. And they have really become I would say they're the dominant voice in water. No disrespect to Aqua. I also participate heavily in Aqua. I'm very close to all of them. I love Aqua. Aqua has a very difficult process, though, that they go through to take their position. CMUA is much more nimble. It's kind of much more driven by management. So I'm a big fan of Aqua and a big fan of CMUA. So, and I participate in both.
Okay. Exciting bill.
So for this particular bill, we can just continue to watch. I think I heard you say that, Director Aguilar. And then, as it develops more, and as Cyrus said, this seems to just be a third. But I mean, if we needed to lean one way, I don't think we're in opposition of everything that this bill is looking to do. But we'll definitely keep you both looped, and as things develop, or if there's, I really enjoy Aqua's analyses that they put out. So if there's a new one too, based off of any new amendments that happen to come out, I'll make sure to get you that as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Before moving over to federal, are there any other state-related items that we wanted to discuss?
I don't have any.
Okay. Same? Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cyrus.
Thanks, Cyrus.
Okay, so for federal, we have Anna Schwab here with Best and Krieger as well, part of our federal advocacy team, and I will let her take the lead.
Thanks, Victoria, Director Estrada, Director Aguilar. It is great to be with you both this evening. So very first thing up, just kind of wanted to review the legislative matrix as well as happenings in the 118th Congress. Biggest thing there for everybody to just really be aware of is that given, well, as Victoria said, it's our first meeting of the year, so I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. Speaker McCarthy came in, he had a very tough battle to become speaker, took 15 rounds, historic in its own nature. The speaker's race was tough for many reasons, one of which is because the speaker does not have a large majority. He only has a 4-seat majority. And one thing that the Democratic caucus in the House has always been very good about is coalescing behind their leader, whereas the House Republicans have not always done the same. And so what we're seeing here is that the Republicans are now really needing to make sure that every single bill they move, every single bill they try to take forward to the floor is something they can really secure. Speaker McCarthy does not want to take something forward to the floor that is not going to be able to be passed by his caucus. Now, he has received some bipartisan support on some things, most notably would be the Congressional Review Act to withdraw the EPA and Army Corps of Engineers waters of the United States, which was very monumental. The Senate also actually just passed that today. President Biden has said that he will be vetoing it, and it's unlikely that the House and Senate combined have the votes to move it forward back again, in spite of the veto. However, the purpose of sharing this, in addition to giving an update on WOTUS, is also because as you look at what we're maneuvering through in this Congress, it's really going to be a navigation of what are House Republicans going to support, and then what can receive 50 votes in the Senate, be that mostly from the Democratic members in the Senate, maybe with a few Republicans, depending on what the type of bill is. Usually you need 51 votes. Some bills in the Senate do require 60. So we're really looking at high stakes negotiations taking place over this 118th Congress. Now, also to be aware of, as we're looking at in a 4-seat majority in the House, every House of Representatives member is up for re-election in 2024. I know we just had the 2022 election, so the last thing we really want to be talking about is another election, but alas, it is important for how we're going to strategically place ourselves over this next congressional term. In the Senate, there is an interesting margin. While the Democrats do have a majority, there are 33 seats up for re-election in 2024, and of those, there's some pretty significant names that we need to be aware of. Obviously, in our own state, Senator Feinstein has announced that she will be retiring, so we will have a robust Senate race going on right in our backyard. Outside of California, we do have Senator Manchin from West Virginia and Senator Sinema from Arizona and Senator Tester from Montana all up. Now, as you may know, Senator Manchin has not always voted with the Democrats, but has remained a Democrat. Senator Sinema had been a Democrat, switched to independent, but still caucuses with Democrats. And Senator Tester is a Democrat, has not really challenged too much of the tried and true Democrats, but he is challenged by some of the heavy state Republican politics that do take place in Montana. What this all comes down to and what it means for CVWD is we have to be really strategic with what we're pushing forward and what can get passed in this Congress. So that's what we're really looking at and how we are positioning items. Now, both House and Senate, fun fact, are led by women. You have 2 women in the House, 2 women in the Senate, both leading the House and Senate Appropriations Committees this Congress. They will be at the crux of most every conversation that's going to take place, especially this year. As you may have seen in the news, the debt ceiling is set to expire, or we're supposed to hit our debt ceiling. And on that, the debt ceiling limit is either going to need to be raised or some significant cuts are going to have to take place. Speaker McCarthy has not yet engaged with President Biden, and likewise, President Biden has not yet engaged with Speaker McCarthy. They've sent back a couple political press releases through letters in the news this week, but they haven't sat down face-to-face to determine where is a middle ground they're going to be able to agree on. So the reason I bring that up and what it means for CVWD is as we're looking at appropriations, the question on the debt ceiling is going to be significant. Are Republicans going to try to cut additional programs? What programs will they be? In what measures? We are going to be working incredibly hard to make sure that the programs such as Title 16, funding for water and wastewater and disadvantaged communities is funded. The state revolving loan funds are funded at the levels necessary to be meaningful and impactful to agencies like CVWD. So we'll be working with that. Obviously, a few other accounts, but those are just a few to highlight. We will keep you posted. There will be more to come on that, absolutely, as we come down the pike. Regular order would mean that the House and Senate come to an agreement and have all 12 appropriations bills done by September 30th. But if we were in Las Vegas, I would say that would be a very bad bet to say they're going to do all 12 by September 30th. We will likely end up with some sort of continuing resolution. The question will be, is it going to be for just one bill? Will it be for more than one bill? Will it be for, who knows? We'll see. There is a chance they can pass Interior and Environment, Energy and Water, maybe a couple other non-controversial bills out through regular order, Interior and Environment and Energy Water being 2 of the most important for CVWD. I'm just trying to think here. One other large thing. So permitting, obviously a huge thing in all of our projects. You'll see there is a brief highlight for HR 1 in your legislative report. One update on that, the House did pass it today along party lines. And we will see that it probably won't go very far in the Senate, especially since Senator Capito, the ranking member of the Senate Environment Public Works Committee, is putting together her own permitting reform bill. She's trying to do it in conjunction with Senator Manchin. If you recall, he had released a permitting reform bill that he asked to be included in the Inflation Reduction Act. It had received a vote but did not move forward into the bill. So we will be seeing some permitting reforms over this Congress. The question is, to what magnitude will the Democrats agree? Because we do need to make sure there is bipartisan support, again, given the makeup of what we're looking at in Congress this term. Additionally, Congressman Garamendi has reintroduced his bill to extend the MPDES permit time from 5 years to 10 years. It is one that has been of importance before, one that we consider if you think about the time frame of once you've negotiated your permit and then how many years, it really kind of, you end that one and you already start having to plan for the next one. It does take a very long time to get them processed and approved by the approving agencies and all parties involved. So that is a bill that comes up. It will likely, my guess is, get included into a permitting reform package once that is final through both chambers. But more to come on that. We don't have full insight into it yet, as the House and Senate are still navigating exactly how they're going to come to an agreement on all these pieces. So I will pause there. That was a lot in a very short amount of time, and I will see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Anna. I just, I forget where we are on submitting projects for prospective set-aside consideration. We already have a list that was submitted. Where are we?
Sure, we can take that. We did submit for congressional directed spending for the North Cathedral City flood project. That is what engineering has had identified as the project to move forward. So we did apply with both senators, Congressman Ruiz and Congressman Calvert. This is within Ruiz's district. It's in Cathedral City. It's near the border of his district, and because it is a regional project and kind of the whole sphere of influence, we decided to apply in Calvert's area as well. And so I believe that there is the Interior Environment Bill, or the first initial projects will be released in April. Is that correct, Anna?
Yes. So the members will release which ones they put forward to the Appropriations Committee on April 10th. Mm-hmm. We won't know anything before then in the House. The Senate has not released their timeline yet, but I would expect it won't be sooner than that.
So do we need to do anything in the interim, any lobbying or talking to folks?
All applications have been submitted. We received letters of support from City of Cathedral City, Supervisor Perez, Assemblymember Garcia, United Way, Lift to Rise, I believe also Assemblymember Wallace. So everything's been submitted. We were really grateful to also have the City of Cathedral City support the project as well.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
And we have had follow-ups with the senators' offices, and also have had conversations where the House members have reached out to us. Their process is a bit different in terms of what and how we go about following up. But we've definitely done follow-up with each request that has been put out there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I don't have anything to add. No questions.
Perfect. Anna, do you mind if I take the matrix?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what you have, and I want to touch on the matrix. Actually, if there are no questions on the matrix or any of the bills identified in there, okay, I'm seeing some head shakes. So I wanted to touch base with you on that because Congress it's a 2-year session as well, right? And so right now you only have a 2-page document. It's quite short, and that is the full matrix of bills that are of particular interest to us. Come next year, and as you saw last year, that document turns into 80 pages, give or take. And so you have the option of receiving the full 80, continuing getting all of the bills that we've identified as a priority for water, or we can have the federal affairs team kind of narrow it more down to bills of particular interest to CVWD, not just to water altogether. And so I wanted to see what both of you might be interested in seeing, because 80 pages can be quite hefty. Because I know I want to be fully transparent and provide you as much information as you'd like, but also if it's too much, happy to taper as well.
I would suggest you give us a short version, but also give us the full version.
Okay, so both versions.
And I think in the past I've seen, even on the state side, It's almost like the state. I think there's some. I remember, I don't know what list it was, but it had bills that we didn't take any position on, and then it had bills that we took a position on, but it was the full list. And so I think that I personally would like to have the full list, just to have the opportunity to flag something that might be of particular interest to me and might maybe not have been of particular interest to the committee, the Federal Affairs Committee. So I would prefer the full list.
Okay.
That's just related
if
to
I may,
water,
Director-
right?
Yeah. Go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, exactly. Just related to water. I won't give you all the bills that Congress introduces, but one thing that I will just mention is last Congress, for instance, we did give you a spreadsheet that did have every single bill within it, also noting which ones you all took support positions on, and obviously leaving blank where you did not. So we can definitely still do that in addition to highlighting where you have some specific bills each month if there's been new ones introduced of interest.
Yeah, that's worked in the past.
Okay.
Where and yes, only water related, but
Absolutely.
And we
There'd
don't-
be way too many bills.
yeah, and we don't weigh in on all of them.
No.
But you identify which ones we've weighed in on.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, but I'd like to see them.
Okay.
So, Federal Affairs Committee, you mentioned the federal. you talked
Federal
about a
Affairs
committee
team. I'm
team.
sorry.
So tell me, who's the team?
The team would be Anna Lowry, so Anna Schwab, Lowry Crook, and then Samantha Sable.
Okay. I thought maybe there were other team members that I was not aware of. So.
No.
How large is your team? Yeah.
And then our state affairs team is Cyrus.
Yeah, and
I'm kind of moving away from the connotation of lobbyists. I think having federal advocates or state advocates just rolls a little bit better.
I hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
We didn't hire anyone, don't worry. Anna, all yours for the federal regulatory overview.
Thanks, Victoria. So biggest thing here, and I don't know if this will show, but you can kind of get a sense of this very large binder. That is the EPA proposed rule on the MCLs for PFOA, PFOS, and for other PFAS substances. We were expecting this for PFOA and PFOS, but not for the other four. Very interestingly, EPA has taken the approach of a brand new measurement for the other four without pre-solicitation of how they should be doing it or what levels they should be going for. So it'll be a very interesting review process. There are some Administrative Procedure Act legal considerations in this. We will be working really closely with the CBWD team on putting together comments, which are due May 30th. You do have the legal alerts that BBK put together in your report, so I won't regurgitate the whole thing to you, but needless to say, it does set the levels very, very low. Some of it, there are questions as to whether or not this has been arbitrary and capricious by the EPA, just determining some of the specific levels and where we're seeing things. So we'll be working really closely with staff to put together comprehensive comments for EPA. Again, those are due May 30th.
Yeah, we are working with Randy Mays, Zoe, and Steve regarding putting a CBWD response together for this EPA rule. And then I'm not quite sure if your packet actually did have the legal alert, kind of a executive summary.
It's in the report.
Oh, it's in the report. Okay, good. Because I was going to say I'll follow up with that. But any questions on PFAS?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Anna, is there anything else on regulatory? I know you touched on WOTUS earlier in Senate's decision today.
No, I'm just trying to think.
Okay.
WOTUS, we're still waiting on the SACIT decision, so that can also impact WOTUS. Still sitting at the Supreme Court. That case was heard back on October 3rd, the first day of session. But other than that, those are the two major regulatory steps being taken right now.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Is there anything federal that you guys had questions on that we didn't touch on today?
And this is just a comment, whether it's, I don't know what category it falls in, but are you aware of any federal bill or state bill, whether it's in the state of Arizona or in any state in the lower basin, that are related to Colorado River water?
I'll let you take that one.
I can start on the federal. Yeah, I can start on the federal side. Congress has been fairly quiet. I won't say completely quiet. They've been fairly quiet when it comes to the Colorado River right now. They've been kind of letting everybody, as you would say, maybe duke it out. There has been a mention of the Colorado River in some of the bills we noted in your packet that do touch on conservation or use, but nothing in terms of a direct allocation or reviewing any of the decrees or anything that we've previously had. Congress typically can't take that up till recommendations are made. There are certain actions Congress can take, but they have not yet. But we are expecting to see from the Bureau of Reclamation next month some guidance and determinations on next steps regarding the Colorado River. But it is definitely one of the areas we are focusing on, and make sure to have meetings with key stakeholders on as well on your all's behalf.
Thank you.
And then just for your information, the Bureau at the end of last week did put out a request for comments and feedback regarding component 2 funding through the Inflation Reduction Act, which is for further conservation for Colorado River water users. And so that's something that we've been also following closely, and we are actually we have a draft letter, and we're working with Assistant General Manager Chang as well, and making sure that we get that submitted by next Thursday.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions, Director Aguilar. I think with that, does that conclude your reports?
Yes.
So
It does. Thank you both so very much.
Thank you, Anna. Have a good day. Without any further reports, that adjourns our meeting. Meeting adjourned.